Hello, I'm Grace Chatting, and welcome to Relationship Academy, where we teach lessons that they didn't teach at school. And this is a free webinar series on relationship mastery for singles. So the first webinar is looking at, are you ready for love? Because many people want to have relationships, but they don't ever stop to consider, are they actually ready for relationships? And I believe that many relationships fail simply because people who've gone into them weren't ready to have them. Now, what does being ready mean? Now, before we look at that, it'd be helpful if you switch off your mobile and Facebook and any other applications that you may have been playing around with. Grab a notebook and a pen. It's a good idea if you begin to keep a journal so that you can record things and build up your relationship mastery, because this series is about building relationship mastery. And as we go through, you'll notice on some of the slides that there's a stop button, and well, it's not a button, but it indicates that to stop the video and to make notes. And so that will be really helpful if you can do that. So one of the first things to consider about being ready for a relationship is, are you on the rebound from a previous relationship? Because this can get in the way of how you view a potential new partner. So it's always good to be clear of a relationship, and certainly if you're already in a relationship, it's not a good idea to be thinking about another one until you've left that one. So, take note of where you are in that, and also look at, do you have a pattern of failed relationships? What is your relationship pattern? Maybe they haven't been failed relationships, maybe they were good relationships, but look at what the pattern is, because often people do have a pattern. Yours may be that you're often attracted to people who either are not legally available, they're married to somebody else perhaps, or they're not emotionally available, or they're not geographically available. But consider, what is the pattern, because you need to be aware, because otherwise you'll slip into the same pattern. So the next thing to be aware of is, what kind of a relationship do you have with yourself? Now, many people think, oh, well, when I meet Mr. or Mrs. Right, I'll be happy. No, that's not the way it works. First of all, you get happy with yourself, and then you'll be much more attractive, and you will attract another person who's also happy with themselves, and together you can share happy lives. So how do you get to be happy with yourself? Um, so looking at the fact that we don't know what we don't know, this picture illustrates, it's a picture of an iceberg showing that only about 1/10 of it is above the waterline and all the rest is below the waterline. And our mind is like that. There's only about 1/10 or less than 1/10 of our mind is considered to be conscious, and all the rest is unconscious. Now, most people, well, not most people, all people don't know what's in their unconscious, and they don't know what they don't know. And people just go through life unconsciously. So the first thing to be ready for love is to become conscious and to be aware, become aware of what it is that's below the waterline. It was what was below the waterline that sunk the Titanic, and it's what's below the waterline that sinks most relationships. So if you want to get ready for love, you really need to take the time to find out, what is it that drives you unconsciously. So how do you do that? You consider the fact that we came into the world, little babies and little children, right up until they're about 5 or 6, are operating on delta and theta brain waves, which means they're in almost like a hypnotic state, and they just absorb what they see and hear and sense in the atmosphere. So that's from their parents, their family, their community, their culture, their religion, and just everything that goes on around them. And of course, they haven't got the cognitive ability to be discriminating about that. They just absorb it literally. So it's helpful if you stop and consider, What kind of parents did you have? And this is not about blaming your parents, it's just looking at what messages did you pick up. Were your parents carefree and fun-loving and easygoing, and that you felt relaxed with them? Or were they quite rigid and strict and had very high expectations of how you needed to behave? Because that will affect how you are in your relationships. And so moving on to look at what was your extended family like? Were they people who were very accepting and sociable? Did they invite people into their home readily? Did they accept people who were different from them? Or were they standoffish, withdrawn, suspicious, wary of people who weren't the same as them? Take note. And here we have two very beautiful young women, clearly from two different cultures and probably two different religions as well. And you can see that their relationship choices would probably be very different. What was the impact of your culture and your religion on how you view religions and the world generally? And so now it would be a really good thing for you to, in a moment, stop the video and write down all the messages and rules that you had from all the different aspects of your environment on men, women, children, couples, marriage, families, race, work, sex, money, because these are all things that are important as far as relationships are concerned. And you need to make these unconscious messages conscious. So now I hope that you took the time to do that exercise, because these messages and rules become your operating system. Now it's a bit like Windows 95 was state of the art in 95, but it's pretty defunct now. And likewise, the messages and rules you picked up when you were little will not necessarily serve you now, because those messages you picked up from your parents and your environment, mostly your parents, and they picked them up from their parents. Well, they might have served them in the time they lived, but they won't necessarily do for you now. So you need an upgrade. So how do you do that? Well, you are now aware of some of the ways that you construe the world, your personal constructs, and what you need to do is to take time to deconstruct them. In other words, look at each one and consider, does this serve me in my life, in this place, in this day? And if the answer is, well, no, not really, then you need to reconstruct and consider, well, what do you really believe? Because you will have picked up a lot of limiting beliefs about all of those topics, and you need to really make that conscious and reconstruct them, because you need to consider how these show up in your actions and in your behavior, and it's worth taking time to ponder on that. How do those old messages affect how you are in relationships? And even, a bit more somberly, are these messages that you want to pass on to your children? Because that's what you will do. Just like you picked up your parents' messages, your children will pick up yours. So getting to know you and those unconscious messages and rules are the biggest step that you can take to get ready for having a loving relationship with somebody else and become who you were born to be. Thank you for listening, and I look forward to hearing from you and joining with you in the other webinars. Thank you. Bye now.